Because you don't really want to make sure that Milan's going to be in that bottom lane, or in the bottom lane there for 33 to give him the best possible start.
Yeah, but usually like when you're versing against Batrider, like if you're a carry player, it just feels good. Like whatever the carry, if you're not playing Terrorblade or anything, like something that has this evacuating or like slowing enemy, and like clearly the Spectre has this the dagger to slow him and you move in fast at the same time. So once he has like stick, I think he probably will feel good in this lane.
And you've also got the CM as well,
Yeah,
able
so
to
double
use it to
slow, so I don't think he can ever like commit him unless they make a mistake.
These dives are going to be a lot harder, right? Not just the slow, but also the frostbite, just able to lock him under the tower, get that hitting onto the Batrider, and early on it's going to do a good amount. But how are we thinking these last two picks are going to go? You know, is the Lina still in the pool? Nope, just being bound out by MUDGOLEMS. Very smart. We've seen Boromir go off on his Storm Spirit, and if there is one thing that they're lacking a little bit is some form of initiation. You've got the Spectre, of course, but we've seen how crazy he can go when he's able to pick it up.
Yep. What do you think this Pango ban means? Because I really think like Na'Vi should pick Storm, like
for Iceberg.
For Iceberg, because it's good against Bloodseeker, good against Mirana, good against CM.
The only thing that I can think of with the Pango that we saw from the Southeast Asian region was the Magnus versus Pango matchup, where the Pango did a lot of work in that mid lane up against the Magnus, didn't really allow him to farm all too much. So maybe Na'Vi might be falling back on something like a Magnus draft. They've got a PL who can utilize him power to a certain extent, but
I think the Pango is purely respect for the Boromir style of playing. It's a hero he likes to play. You can get into a Maelstrom and deal with the PL relatively nicely, which is always good.
I really like Magnus here, but I don't think Iceberg will pick it. I think maybe Iceberg will go something more like a roaming and like solve out these games.
Neither team's really mag pickers for the mid lane.
I really like Magnus like coming out from Na'Vi if they do it.
So you guys usually want to see Iceberg on a win condition. Magnus doesn't feel like that for them so far. Kyo, you already pointed out the Storm Spirit here for Na'Vi.
Only problem is the laning. Like MUDGOLEM will just pick Viper or something because they saw this Weeha playing Viper against the Storm, and I think he wrecked very hard.
Yep. I think it doesn't even need to be the win condition, right? Like the PL is your win condition. You just need to do something that's going to be able to stomp the lanes, that's going to be able to rotate through when the Batrider's trying to get these pickoffs. Some good burst damage before the rotations can come from MUDGOLEMS.
Or Na'Vi can just pick Viper here just to secure or Lash.
Ooh, okay.
That's surprising.
It's aggressive, that's for sure.
Like it's not a strong laner.
Yeah.
That's the only issue. Like which means like MUDGOLEM can maybe pick up Queen of Pain or
we saw it in that last game where Queen of Pain played against Leshrac.
Yeah,
so.
Storm themselves. I mean, the thing is, this game for me is going to be heavily dependent on how both Roger and Milan are playing.
Yep.
They both play these really strong rotating heroes. Clockwork, of course, in that mid lane, you just lay down the cogs, push someone back down to the low ground, don't enable anyone to come and help. But I think the rune control is going to be really key here. You know, Leshrac needs mana. He needs those bottle refills to be able to put pressure on and get out of that laning stage with at least a draw.
Yeah, and he really needs to be ahead. Like if you're versing against Spectre and Bloodseeker, you have to use bunch of mana or just be high level so you just damage more.
Yeah, even like a slight loss in the lane is huge for MUDGOLEMS. They want to be able to give this Spectre the best lane possible. Bloodseeker against a Batrider isn't the worst, and yeah, we're seeing a Storm Spirit. It's a Boromir comfort hero. I'm liking it.
I'm surprised they didn't ban it. Like
They did ban the Ember and the Pango, so you only had 2 bans left, but is this a good enough lane here for Iceberg on the Leshrac, lads? You said he's not really that strong of a laner, so...
But Lash is technically more stronger than Storm if you get QE. If you get like a 1 or 2 kills off at before level 5, I think he's gonna be having a good lead. But I think Boromir plays so much Storm, so he probably understands those angles. Like unless like Roger rotates in proper angle, I don't think he's gonna die like much.
Yeah, I think the Storm Spirit was just, look, you can't ban everything. Boromir's got a pretty deep hero pool, and they got rid of the Lina, Nature's Prophet, Ember Spirit, and the Pangolius. So something's got to be left. It's the Storm Spirit. I'm gonna say MUDGOLEMS have this one.
I'm gonna go with MUDGOLEM as well.
I was gonna say, lads, this might be a little bit of a tight one for you guys to predict. So you guys are gonna both lay here for MUDGOLEMS. You said, Matt, that you're expecting, you know, it's gonna be a lot on Milan and Roger. Do you feel like they both have heroes here that can really pop off?
Not pop off, but they just need to enable their mid laner. That's their role this game. So whichever team does a better job at that, I think is going to win. And I feel like Milan, Mirana, Well, honestly, and Roger Clockwork are both really,
Don't
really
change your
good.
prediction here, Matt. You've
No,
already
I'm not
locked it in.
changing, but it's going to be super close.
All right, it's going to be super close indeed here. So we're going to get ourselves prepped and ready for game number 1 here between Na'Vi and MUDGOLEMS. We're going to leave it with our casters one more time. It's going to be Pixie and Foggo.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Game 1 of MUDGOLEMS versus Na'Vi. I'm Buddy Pixel here with Fogged. Fogged, what are you expecting out of this one? Do you think we're going to have a close one here, or do you think one side's going to be a little bit of a step ahead?
I do think that we can have a close one here. I see a lot of comfort heroes coming out, like the general Batrider. We got V-Tune on his PL, Borin on his Storm. Lots of fun stuff to look at here, and looks like should be a decent amount of clashing and a lot of focus on initiation, I feel like. That's why I see this like Spectre and Storm picks. When I saw what Na'Vi has, Na'Vi already has the natural initiation a little bit better. I feel like MUDGOLEMS are trying to break that with this Storm, with this Spectre, so they can get all the information.
Sure. Sort of from what you've seen so far from these two teams here, how would you sort of rate them against one another? Because they, of course, both have, obviously, to be playing against each other are at this position where they have won 2 series and lost 1. But when you sort of look at who they played against, Na'Vi, they've had good games, but the only 2 teams they have beaten are Cyber Legacy and Windstrike, 2 teams that are now out of the tournament. So the question is sort of how much do you take away from that and say, well, they are actually... they are as good as MUDGOLEMS, despite the fact they haven't really been tested as much as MUDGOLEMS have so far in this tournament.
I'm really looking forward to this matchup, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I looked at the schedule for today, and I was like, oh, people might not think it's hot because it's just like a team name like MUDGOLEMS, but the way that they played the other day was like just precision at its maximum. So, I mean, I'm actually favoring MUDGOLEMS a little bit as well. I feel like Na'Vi, they've, like you said, they've shown some prowess and all that, but it's also with the heroes that they've picked. I've only seen them look like super dominant when they had like that Mars, Phoenix, that Willow, where they had this great synergy. Besides that, they've looked a little bit shaky.
Yeah, well, this is definitely going to be the test for Na'Vi to see if they can step it up. As you say, don't be dissuaded by the name of MUDGOLEMS. There's definitely players upon this lineup that you, ladies and gentlemen, will all be very familiar of. And of course, it seems to, you would imagine most of the stuff, the strats are coming out of probably the brains of Fada and 33 predominantly. I would imagine. We know these players are people that have had big impacts on previous rosters they're on when it comes to captaining or making calls in the drafts and stuff. So.
Yeah.
No, so definitely some hopeful stuff that we've seen so far from MUDGOLEMS in this run, and I'm excited to see how Na'Vi's able to do against them. See if Na'Vi's able to continue to be back. I mean, they've still had the wins, and I'm sure they're down for this. They absolutely want to be tested. They want to have these sort of big players to go up against. Because Iceberg always want to fly. These guys they don't want to have the easy route. They want to go against the tough teams.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm really liking it. I like this draft. To me, like they both are like counterpicking each other back and forth a lot here, which is really cool. And then I see Na'Vi takes the Lesh. I feel like that was just a steal pick, right? Because they have the PL. MUDGOLEMS has last pick for mid. They take this Lesh rack away and force MUDGOLEMS to go for something like Storm Studio, which is fine. It can still work versus the PL, but Lesh, we know is the king versus PL. You just crush you can't play PL pretty much the entire game.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Some nice planning from both sides for sure.
Well, let's see it. I did have a brief pause. Apologies for that, ladies and gentlemen, but we're now ready to get into the action.
How dare you pause it, Owen? How dare you?
Sorry, yes. I mean, it's F9. I can't help myself. Sometimes I've got to press it. There we go. So we'll see what sort of lane setups we're going to be starting with. And sort of overall, I mean, it is a game with a Spectre in. Does that necessarily mean that this is a game where if Na'Vi don't end it by a certain point, MUDGOLEMS will sort of have the clearer path to victory in the late game, or you do think Na'Vi's roster does fall off here if it goes too long this game? I
mean, they do. The thing is, they do have good damage and all that. They do have like the PL and the Lesh, who they're gonna pump out damage later stages. I just look at Dispersion and like Lesh rack at some point, you're gonna have a BKB. Once your BKB gets low, it's bound to happen. You're just gonna get eaten by these heroes. They're gonna get like MUDGOLEMS at some point in this game. If they're not super far behind, they're gonna start getting the jumps. They're gonna hunt. And then Storm gets to pick and choose who he starts the fight on. So they can kill people before BKBs and all that. So I would favor MUDGOLEMS in the later stages. But Na'Vi, if they're able to get the ball rolling, the PL and the Leshrac do all the damage needed, so they can run over MUDGOLEMs.
Oh,
so
yeah, I mean...
we'll see.
Yeah, that's going to be the thing from Na'Vi. If, Iceberg's... if Iceberg and VTune can get, like, their first 2 major items before the Storm and the Spectre have them, there's definitely going to be the chance that these heroes are just going to be able to run them over, and both of these heroes aren't going to get a chance to catch up. Sure, we are seeing some great Storm showings, but still very much a volatile hero. A wrong move early on in the game can really shake up Boronia's plan for the rest of it. So we'll see how safe and smart he's able to play.
Ah, look at bottom. Immediately, Milan cuts the wave, and he just arrows the range. We're seeing this a lot now. It's just the instantly killing the range creep so that you get your level 2 fast, so you get this advantage in the lane to be able to hit the supports. It's cool. Seeing a team, like everyone doing it now. I saw Secret doing it a bunch of games, and I'm seeing them on the side of MUDGOLEMS. See how mid ends up.
I mean, this lane, it should favor the Lesh on the early stages, right?
It should, yeah.
It's hard to very hard to step up as the Storm.
I feel like Borninga can just farm fine, though. It can just always push the lane in. Iceberg can threaten kills always, but Borninga